The United Nations Secretary-General has appealed to the parties in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas to avoid any further escalation and spillover. He's also called for the immediate release of all Israeli hostages held in Gaza and for civilians to be protected at all times in line with international humanitarian law. Antonio Guterres has also appealed for rapid and unimpeded humanitarian access into Gaza immediately. Let's take a listen.
I call for the immediate release of all Israeli hostages held in Gaza. Civilians must be protected at all times. International humanitarian law must be respected and upheld. About 220,000 Palestinians are now sheltered in 92 UNRWA facilities across Gaza. UN premises and all hospitals, schools and clinics must never be targeted. UN staff are working around the clock to support the people of Gaza, and I deeply regret that some of my colleagues have already paid the ultimate price. Crucial life-saving supplies, including fuel, food and water, must be allowed into Gaza. We need rapid and unimpeded humanitarian access now. I want to thank Egypt for its constructive engagement to facilitate humanitarian access through the Rafah crossing and to make the Al Arish airport available for critical assistance. There is no time to lose. Every moment counts.
And our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, attended that briefing and joins me now. Sherwin, we heard from the SG a short time ago. You can give us a quick recap of some of the other key points that he made as he referred to a supercharged cycle of violence and horror.
Yeah, Iman, he talked about the need to avoid a spillover of the conflict. He raised concern about some exchange of fire along the blue line and recent reported attacks from southern Lebanon. He called for parties to avoid any further escalation and spillover. He also called for international humanitarian law to be respected and upheld. The immediate release, as you saw in that clip, of the some 150 hostages taken by Hamas into Gaza. We need rapid and unimpeded humanitarian access now. But what you didn't hear from the Secretary-General, Iman, was an unequivocal call for the violence to stop, for Israel to stop bombing Gaza right now, for Hamas to lay down its arms. And I think what you see in, that statement is this balancing act between, Israel's right to defend itself. Article 51 of the United Nations UN Charter is very clear in that regard, but also, concern at the growing humanitarian needs as a result of that right to defend itself. If you look at the devastation that's being wrought on the Gaza Strip, essentially an enclave of 2.3 million people, very, very tightly packed in. And so collateral damage is very, very much a term you will be hearing as this conflict escalates, possibly with a ground invasion as we see some 300,000 Israeli troops amassing along that southern Israeli border with the Gaza Strip. So there's not been an unequivocal call for this violence to end, and this is this international balancing act we're seeing playing out now, Iman.
So, Sherwin, the Security Council met on Sunday privately behind closed doors, but there hasn't been a statement or demands from the Council in relation to this conflict. Why is the silence from the body responsible for international peace and security so deafening?
So I was just in contact with one of the European official that is a member of a member state who sits on the council, and this is what they told me. They said they are waiting to see how things play out. Nothing is planned immediately. Brazil, that is a non-permanent member of the council, is apparently testing the waters for a follow-up session, whatever that means. They're wanting to see what happens, the possibility of the militant group in Lebanon, Hezbollah, the political party / militant group, possibly getting involved. And it speaks to this spillover that the Secretary-General is warning against, right? We've seen reports of some artillery exchanges between Syria near the Golan Heights and northern Israel, in northern Israel. And we've also seen reports today that Israeli authorities have ordered citizens to shelter in place in northern Israel after a hostile aircraft entered the airspace from Lebanon. So many unknowns in a region that is very hostile to Israel, Iman. And so the Security Council essentially playing a wait-and-see game here in terms of what might happen so that they don't meet and then things explode. They really want to get a fulsome understanding of what is playing out here. And I can tell you that Tor Vennesland, the Secretary-General Special Coordinator for Middle East Peace, is in the region. He is engaging with various interlocutors. We also understand that the Secretary-General has had calls with the President of Israel, the King of Jordan, the President of the Palestinian Authority, the President of Egypt, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, the Prime Minister of Qatar, the President of Turkey, and the Foreign Minister of Iran. So a lot of behind-the-scenes diplomatic efforts underway here. He might not pronounce himself, perhaps as he might wish to, because sensitive talks are ongoing behind the scenes.
Sherwin, we certainly are no longer on the precipice of tragedy, but certainly inside the valley of destruction. And this has a resonant effect in the region. Talk to us about some of the political and diplomatic developments around Russia, Lebanon, for example. How much potential are you hearing for this to become a much wider conflict?
Well, let's look at what the United States has done in that regard, right? It has sent a strike group, essentially its biggest and newest aircraft carrier that carries some 5,000 sailors, essentially trained soldiers. It has a deck full of warplanes. It has a strike a defense system. It has missile carriers that have descended on the eastern Mediterranean. And the message from the White House has been that this is being positioned there as a deterrence because there is a real concern that there could be spillover here. This is a very volatile situation. The High Commissioner for Human Rights has described it as a powder keg. And so the concern is that anything might happen. What the United States is trying to do is position some sort of deterrence here because it too, one imagines, suspects that things can go in a very unfathomable direction here. And so great concern that there could be spillover here. But the behind-the-scenes diplomatic efforts you are seeing from individuals like the Secretary-General probably speaks to efforts to de-escalate any potential of that happening.